Hello, welcome to the Bad Dog Agility Show. We are going to start off, as always, with our audio-visual check. So I need you guys to give me some thumbs up and some hearts if you can hear me. I've got tech support that's going to give me a thumbs up in the back as soon as he can confirm that everything is live and as it should be. All right, I got the thumbs up. So today we are going to talk about wrap choice strategy, but we're going to talk about a very specific wrap choice that happened in last year's 2017 AKC National Agility Championship Challenge Round. So I'm actually going to put that course map up here on the screen. So here's the course map for that run. And I'll let y'all take a look at that for a minute. And what we're going to look at is the number 1, 2, 3, 4. So at number 2, we have a choice. The dog can turn left or the dog can turn right. So we've got some people online now, I hope, giving us some thumbs up. Everybody's good? All right, so we're going to start with a show of hands. So here's a little zoom in here. Give us a thumbs up right now if you think that going to the left, the dog's left, the dog turning to the left is the fastest path given this setup. So give that a minute. I'll let Esteban take a look, and in a minute he can tell me approximate numbers of thumbs up there. So that's dog turning left. Now we're going to say, who thinks it is faster with dog going right? I've got images so Esteban can see what people are thumbs upping here. So who thinks it's faster going to the right? All right, in just a minute I'll ask Esteban for some thoughts, but let's take a look at it out on the field as well. So we have this sequence set up. Here's the number 1 jump. Here's the number 2 jump. Back here for number 3. And we've substituted a tunnel for the dog walk. This is a great option when you don't have very much space, don't have contact equipment, and a tunnel makes a good substitute for a dog walk because the angle that the dog hits the tunnel does matter. And then it also lets you set up something and be a little bit more versatile and work on some other skills once you've already set this up and you've run it and tried it out. So that's why we have this. And of course we have this jump here because that off-course jump is a very important part of the sequence. And has an effect on how the dogs take number 2 and also how the handler feels about the dog taking number 2. So you can see it out on the field. You saw it on the course map. Did you get a sense, Esteban, for what people thought?
More people choose number 2.
Going to the right. All right, most people thought that going to the right was the faster path. So now I'm going to show you in real time. We taped this and I'll show you in real time. It was close? All right, it was close. So we're going to show you in real time 3 different dogs running this course. And now you're going to see it, it's going to be the eye test. All right, so here we have Brittany and Trek.
Over.
Here's Esteban and Gitchi.
Come. Over. Finish, come. Over. Come.
And here's myself and Venture.
Good job.
All right, so now after seeing it run, I'm wondering if anybody has changed their mind on which way they think it's faster, just based on watching how it actually runs. So you can throw a comment in the comments and let us know if that changed your mind. So before we give you the answer, we're going to give you how to get the answer. So how do you know before you run it and before you time it which way is faster? So we always look with wrap choices, we have three questions that we always want to look at. The first question we want to look is, which of these two turns is easier for the dog? Forget about, what comes next. Based on the angle of where they're coming from, which of these two turns is easier for the dog? The second thing that we're going to look at is the distance. So after they make the wrap, what's the distance back towards this jump versus the distance from the other wing? And the third thing we're going to look at is, after they take this jump, what is the better line to what comes next on course? So what sets them up for what comes next? And so if we look at those three things, if we think about, as the dogs are coming to this jump, which turn is easier for the dog? It's actually not completely cut and dried here, because when the dog turns this way, because of the angles of the jump, and because this is the first jump, your angle of approach on this jump, you control that, right? So if you want to go to that wing, you can set your dog up so that they slice and they're really headed towards that wing. If you wanted to go to the right wing, you can set them up so that they slice and they're really headed toward the right wing. So that is almost a toss-up on this particular setup because of that. Next thing we're going to look at is distance. Very obviously, this distance is a lot less than this distance to that jump. So they have a lot further to travel when they come over this jump. And the last thing is angle to what comes next. When they are coming from this wing, they are going to jump this way and have to turn very sharply back to the dog walk. And it's important that they get a nice run up to the dog walk for safety, and especially those people with running dog walks, they need that nice, clean approach to the dog walk, and they don't want to have to manage it as a handler because they want to get on down the line. When the dog is coming from this wing, it's going to be much more of a jumping this way or even slightly rounded this way. They're much more on the right path to what comes next. So in this situation, we're going to say clearly 1 point to going this way for the distance, clearly 1 point going this way for the angle to what comes next. The easier wrap is almost a tie, but I would say that for most dogs, this wrap is easier than this wrap, which is a little bit more of a hairpin. They're both very strong wraps, though. A lot of times with these choices, one is a wrap and one is a slice. In this case, it's not really like that. They're both wraps. It's just one is a sharper wrap, more of a hairpin turn than the other one. So those are the three questions that we always look at. And every choice you encounter, if you run those three different things through your head, it will give you a much more complete picture of that particular choice. So now that we have kind of looked at the factors, let's actually put them side by side and look at how it plays out in real life. We're going to start our side-by-side comparisons with our 12-inch dog. So here we see dogs up in the air at about the same time. And now we can see the massive difference in distance here versus here. But the angle is going to be better when the dog is coming around this direction. So we actually see the dogs launch at about the same time, slightly different angles. And the result is our dog that went this way is going to get into the tunnel a little bit quicker and at a slightly better angle. So if we wait till we can see the dog's nose coming out, for this small dog, we're looking at about 0.2 of a second difference. Here we have a Esteban and Gitchy at 20 inches. Again, in the air at the same time. And we're going to see that angle is going to be even more prominent with our larger dogs. So now we have quite a bit of a difference here. And it looks like about 4/10 of a second. One last 20-inch dog. A little bit wider turns on both directions there, but again, up in the air near the same time, differences in angle here. And that's going to result in a difference in time. Of almost half of a second. All right, so now we've seen the side-by-side, 3 different dogs, 2 different heights, and we saw that in all of these cases, the time was faster with the dog turning to the right. Now, this may not be true for every single dog and handler team, but when you have 3 different dogs that all do it that way, when you go through the systematic analysis that we talked about before, and that leads you to look at going to the right being the faster path, that's pretty strong, compelling evidence. And I did the video on demand through Four-Legged Flicks. These are great events to go back and review. You have some fantastic dogs running under a lot of pressure on a big stage. So Four-Legged Flicks offered a video on demand, and I used that and went and watched every single dog run the challenge round, and specifically looked at this one section of the course. And what I found was not a single 4, 8, or 12-inch dog turned their dog to the right. Every single 4, 8, and 12-inch dog turned their dog to the left. In fact, 75% of the entire class turned their dog to the left. I also went and took some side-by-sides. So we like to do side-by-sides with our own dogs because it's, you know, my dog versus my dog. There's less variation in speed. So when you compare 2 dogs, 2 different handlers, of course there's going to be variations in the actual dog speed or in the actual execution. But I took several different pairs of dogs that to the eye looked to be similar speeds and who executed this well. And in every case that I compared, the dog who turned to the right beat on this 3 obstacle sequence the dog who went to the left. So it's not 100%, but it's pretty compelling that turning to the right is probably going to give you the faster time. What's more interesting about this particular setup is this was part of the challenge round at AKC Nationals. For those who aren't familiar, the challenge round is kind of a wild card to get into the finals, and the winner, the one and only winner from the class, goes on to the finals. So there is no strategy of just being clean or, you know, having a time that's good enough. You have to beat the class. And so this is a prime example of the kind of run where you want to know the fastest path and you want to have the skills to execute it. So if we look a little bit more at the statistics, where we did start to see some dogs turning to the right was the larger dogs. And we did see that the difference in time was greater for the larger dogs. And that is very common. So as a rule of thumb, the small dogs do not lose as much time on tight wraps or when the angles are bad, because they're able to land and, you know, in these very small strides, adjust back to the line. Whereas a dog jumping 20 or 24, when the angle is bad, they're going to land, you know, way out here, and it's going to take them a couple of large 20-inch dog strides to get their path back on track. So you usually see that small dogs, when you look at the different factors, the tight wraps affect them less, long distances affect them more. Whereas our big dogs usually, even if there's extra yardage, they're able to eat up that yardage, because that extra yardage for a large dog might be 1 stride difference. That extra yardage for a small dog might be 3 strides difference. So those are rule of thumbs, but it's a mistake to then say, okay, then the wrap is always faster with a small dog. As we saw with our 12-inch dog, the difference was less, but still we're talking 0.2 of a second, which can be the difference between making the finals or not for certain events, or podium or not, or first place or not. So you want to evaluate this for your dog. And one thing that we always recommend is every choice you encounter, set it up, run it, tape it, time it. You cannot use the eye test. You cannot do what feels tightest. You have to put a clock to it, because you don't always know. You can't always tell just by watching. You've got to put a clock on it. There's kind of these almost optical illusions that happen on course. And the other reason that it's so important for you to set these up yourself and run them is because you not only need to be able to see which way is faster, you need to start to internalize which factors matter. So the more of these you set up, the more you're going to realize, okay, if I'm looking at these 3 factors, if the distance is a large distance, then my kind of steady dog is going to lose extra compared to other dogs out there. And that for me is a bigger factor. So those 3 things that we look at, those 3 might not all be created equal for your dog, given their physical characteristics, their ability to turn, their ability to accelerate down a line and eat up yardage. So you want to know the factors that are most important to you. You also want to start to get a sense of the amount of time that you're going to give up, because there are times when you will willingly take the longer path. There is some strategy to this sport, and especially when you're talking about championship events. There are going to be times, if you're at nationals, the name of the game for most heights is 3 clean runs. 3 clean runs is actually pretty hard to do in a single weekend with the pressure of a national event. And so for a lot of teams, it is much more important in those first 3 rounds to be clean than it is to get the fastest time. The other thing that you want to know is your speed relative to the field. So when you are the fastest dog in your height, you can afford to give up 0.2 of a second to take what you believe for you is a more conservative or a safer path. So on this particular course, I think there were a couple of reasons why people leaned left. So I think first of all, I think people did think that this shorter path was going to be faster. They were not fully accounting for how big of an effect this angle was going to have on their dogs. I think the other thing that you see on tape, both at the event and in our demonstrations, is that it's not a straight shot. When the dog wraps here, they don't have a straight shot here, because most people, their dogs are going to go a little bit wider here and then have to come around their body. So they actually add yardage here, and just by the nature of the turn. Whereas here, as the dog turns, they're actually on a nice smooth line, and if they drift a teeny bit out, they're actually set up better for this course. So, I mean, for this line here. So we see kind of these S paths over here. We don't see that S path over here. I think that a lot of people are much more comfortable doing wrap front crosses to control turns. So over here, you get to control the turn by being right here, front crossing, and bringing the dog on your left arm and forcing their path to this jump. Over here, you have to either post turn, so as the dog comes up, just turn in place. A lot of people aren't very comfortable with that particular turn. You have this off-course trap. People are going to be nervous about that off-course trap. So those are some of the contributing factors that are going to have people feeling like turning to the left is that safer option. So one more thing about practicing choices in practice, being able to set it up in your yard and tape it and time it, is you want to compare a really good left turn with a really good right turn. Of course, there were a few dogs at the event who they wanted their dog to turn right, and the dog took this big old, huge, wide turn before coming through the gap. Those dogs did not go faster turning to the right because it wasn't executed very well. But when we're looking at potential time, we want to compare two very good executions. So when you practice it, you want to compare two different good executions. If your dog does not execute well, or if you do not execute well, that shows you that there is a gap in skill that is preventing you from being able to really have both options available to you and to pick the one that's faster. And so when that happens, you want to make a note of that skill that you need. That has nothing to do with wrap choices. That's just, you know, I can turn them one way, I can't very well turn them the other because of the presence of off-course traps or the particular handling required. And you want to go back and add those skills back in. Do we have any questions thus far, Esteban? I guess I will say a couple more things about the stats. So I said 75% of the field. The one height class where more dogs turned right than left was the 20s and the P16s, which I think of as 20, you know, they're the 20-inch dogs that are now running 16 because they're in performance. So that group of dogs was the group that seemed to have the handle really on that turn and what it meant to turn left versus right. And we also know from statistics that that is the fastest, you know, just ground speed, that is the fastest class of dogs. And so those are going to be the dogs that can eat up that yardage. They're going to benefit, they're going to want to give their dogs those nice smooth lines. So let's see, in P16, I think it was 5-3, 5 went right and 3 went left. And in the 20-inch class, 6 went right, 5 went left. So you're not talking about overwhelming numbers going to the right. It wasn't like a flip-flop, but there was much more of the dogs choosing to go right. You have something to say? All right.
Okay, hello everyone. I've been monitoring some of the questions. So I think one other special consideration that I'm going to give you, and this is something that we didn't really know about when we first started all this wrap choice stuff years and years ago, and has really happened because of two trends in agility. One is running contacts. All right, so the obstacle that you're going to really matters. It makes a big difference. And a dog walk, a weave pole, the A-frame, the seesaw, especially the dog walk though, the contacts, that's a big deal. If you're a running contact dog, you get a big boost, a very big boost to have a straight on approach. So for the running contact dog, you want to line your dog up as straight on as possible. Even a very slight angle difference of 15 degrees can give you a difference of 1 or 2/10 of a second. 30 degrees, it can be as much as 3 to 4/10 of a second right there. And so I'll take more yardage, more distance just to get a better approach. If I lose 1 or 2/10, but I can gain 3 or 4/10, obviously that's going to be a trade-off that I want to make. So contact obstacle approaches. The other trend in course design that we've had over the last couple of years is more and more straight tunnels or straight-ish tunnels. If you can get a straight shot into the tunnel, it's going to be a massive, massive edge because the dog does not have to bank off either side of the tunnel. This is especially relevant for large dogs, and I'm talking like the 24-inch dogs, like the large German Shepherds, a Vizsla, a Rottweiler, a Berner. Getting a straight approach to a tunnel is really a big deal because these are dogs that often have to duck down and hunch a little bit just to get in there, and when they have to enter at an angle, it's a big deal. So I think those are two special consideration obstacles. Early on, someone had mentioned that they didn't think it was valid because we were using a tunnel here for a dog walk. It's true, your benefit or lack of benefit is going to be different putting different obstacles there, right? If you put a jump, you can slice the jump any which way. The tunnel you have to straighten out, and obviously the dog walk you have to straighten up. And if your approach angle is bad enough, like you will increase the risk of slipping off of the dog walk, for example, especially if you're in a rainy kind of outdoor dog show or even indoor dog show where the contacts are going to be wet, things like that. So, you know, even that is something to think about, but that just goes back to wanting to have a straight approach. But as far as like, you know, is it valid? Is the difference valid? Well, yes, it is. It doesn't matter if I just have a bowl of food over there instead of the tunnel. The dogs physically get there faster one way than the other. But you're right in that, you know, for a true comparison here, we're very interested in the dog walk approach. You do want to have a dog walk out there. But if you put a dog walk here or a straight tunnel, it's about the same. And it's very intentional that we don't have a jump there replacing it, that we have a tunnel. Okay, here we happen to curve it so we can do some other things with the other exercises and options people could practice with. You know, there's not much room in this yard. If you did a straight tunnel, you couldn't really do much. You'd just be running your dog into the fence over there. But let's say at home, you don't have any contact equipment and you want to do some of these choices that you run into at a show and you want a dog walk or an A-frame replacement, the best thing to use is a straight tunnel because that's going to mimic the contact obstacle the best. Okay, so those are a couple tips here that we've gotten in recent years that we didn't really have when all this analysis first started coming out. This is a huge trend right now. We've got 2 big shows coming up here in the United States, and that would be Westminster, which is in about 2 weeks, and AKC Nationals in about like 8 or 9 weeks, sometime in March. And at least at AKC Nationals, you're going to see a choice. It's going to be either in the challenge round, hopefully the finals, because it's a great way, in my opinion, to really, as Sarah said, kind of separate the good from the great. You know, people who really understand agility. And so I think it's really a great thing there. As far as, you know, is it ever okay to take the slower choice? I think Sarah really covered that well. Specifically, when we talk about that challenger round, because I saw that Angie Benakisto had a question about it, or had commented about it, and she had the fastest, Angie did, with her All-American Sunday in the 12-inch high class. So she won the challenger round. That put her in the finals. Okay, so it's a really big deal for her to win it. And in order to win it, she had to go through a pretty tough 12-inch class. And it's a class that included Cassie and Bliss, the poodle, right? So Cassie is a great handler. Bliss is an amazing dog. They're putting up like top 5 kind of times at international competitions like the European Open, like top 10 times. Like, this is a really fast dog, right? And so if you are in that height class, it really depends on your dog and kind of your strategy and what the rule is there, right? Because in the challenger round, like Sarah said, it's a winner take all, right? You get nothing for second place, and the second place dog in this case to Sunday was Bliss. So Bliss gets nothing, even though 6 different height classes. Bliss had the fourth fastest time in the challenger round of any dog in any height. She didn't get to go to the final.
Because it was the second fastest
because it was
in 12.
the second fastest in 12-inch. She had the unfortunate honor, I guess, of running into Sunday and Sunday knocking Bliss out, Bliss not being in the finals there. So winning there is very important. So let's say you have like a middle of the pack dog, like one of these dogs that finishes in about 31 seconds. Still a very, very fast dog. Just to let you know, Sunday finished with a 27.6. Bliss was a 29.4. You had a couple dogs at 30, 31, 33. Okay, so let's say you got the 32, 33 second dog. You know, even with your bestest run on your bestest day, you're not going to beat Sunday or Bliss. Okay? And you look over here at this challenge, what do? Well, if you can go either way, left or right, with 100% accuracy and not make a mistake and be confident because you have the skill, the experience, and all that stuff, I'd just go the faster way. Okay, you're always going to take the faster way. Now, let's say going the slower way, you're 100% confident. Going the faster way, oh man, maybe half the time your dog's going to go off course. Half the time, right? That's a high error rate. But you're like, oh man, you know, to beat these fast dogs, I really need the extra 0.4 of a second. Guess what? You're not 0.4 of a second close to the fast dogs. You're like 3, 4, 5 seconds slower, right, than Bliss and Sunday. So it doesn't make sense for you to take the risk to do that, okay? You're going to hope that Bliss and Sunday both fault. And if they fault, guess what? You've got the clean run because you were sitting on that time. Now, you do have to consider other dogs that are your speed, right? So if you're a 32, 33 second dog and there's 2 or 3 other 32, 33 second dogs and you know those handlers and they can all go the fast way, well, now maybe you do have to play the game within a game and say, well, I need a couple things to happen. I need Bliss and Sunday to fault, and I got to make sure I beat the other dogs that are my speed, okay? So it's only if you're sitting in the middle, no one is near you in speed, you're ahead of the rest of the field, you can't catch the top 2 dogs, so they got to fault anyway, then you might say, I'm not going to take that chance. So there is a lot of strategy that comes into it. Now let me give you the other perspective, right? Which is going to be Angie's perspective, the Sunday perspective. And I'm not sure where she ran in the order, because
Yeah.
that's a big deal too. If you are the last dog to run, very, very big deal. And so it's a big advantage. And so if you know that you have the fastest dog, you're in the same situation, right? If you know that I go the slower way and I give away 3 or 4 tenths and I'm still going to beat the field by a second, what does it matter? If you're 100% confident either way, I choose the fastest way. If you're not 100% confident on the faster way, right, there's some error rate there and there's no error rate on the other side, obviously I'd take the safer pick. You know, but if they both are a coin flip, like either way, you have a 50% chance of going off course, again, it doesn't matter which way you take, I would just take the faster one. You know, anytime there's a tie, I'm just going to take the faster path.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, you know, I think that covers that strategy, and that's really a big deal because that is coming up. These big events are coming up, and that's what's so interesting. And Sarah wanted to do this because with those events coming up, it was so interesting to see so many people choose, quote unquote, the wrong way. Now, if we look at it, it may have been the right way for these reasons.
Right, for that team.
Right, but now, what were the numbers like? 60, 70%? That's
I
a
think.
little too high. You're going to tell me that, you know, maybe 75% of everyone who was good enough to get in the challenge round wasn't good enough to do that challenge? I mean, the numbers don't seem quite right to me. I think probably there's some handlers in there that didn't really know the best way, or they were looking at factors that really weren't that important. And so we just want to kind of clarify that up and put everyone on, you know, equal footing heading into these big events, because you're going to hear people say, just like Sarah said, my dog is a big dog, I should always keep them extension. I don't care if you have a Great Dane. There are going to be setups where a wrap is going to be the faster way. 100%, okay? Send me an email, I'll send you the course. You go run it with the dog, and I'll prove it to you, okay? You may have the tightest turning, most amazing little 16-inch Border Collie or 8-inch Papillon, okay? And you're like, the wrap is always faster for me. I'm always going to take the shorter distance. That truism is a little closer to being almost 100% correct. But there are still going to be situations where even a bad, slightly wide turn is going to be the faster way, okay? Or the going to the outside is going to give you a better angle to a dog walk, to a straight tunnel, and suddenly you're going to find yourself in a position where you're giving away time, especially in a very key position, maybe fighting for that last spot. You know, 30 dogs are going to make the 20-inch final.
That's right.
And the last dog that gets in isn't going to be super duper world team fast, right? But there's going to be 5 or 6 dogs, and they're all going to be within half a second of each other for that last spot.
Yep.
That means one person's going to be really happy, no matter what they do in the finals. They're going to be like, yes, I got in. I got that last spot. The other 4 are going to go home and be like, I traveled 3 days all the way to Reno, Nevada.
Missed it by 1.
And missed it by just 1 turn. Where could I have gotten that 1 turn, that 0.4 of a second? This is where you could have got it. Okay, and so that's why it's so important to us, and we're bringing it up.
All right, give me my bike back. All right, so as we said at the very beginning, one of the reasons that we did substitute a tunnel is because we like to give you guys a couple of sequences whenever we have something like this out here for our live events, so that to encourage you to go set it up, because it's not just this one sequence. You can set it up and you can do multiple things. So we do have some nested sequences, and if you type choice in the comments, if you're watching on Facebook, doesn't work in YouTube, so don't try it, but in Facebook you can type choice in the comments, or you can go to baddogagility.com/choice. And we will send you, actually we have a couple of special things. We have a couple of nested sequences on this setup. And the exciting thing about those nested sequences is I put some wrap choices in them. I put several wrap choices in there. I think I know which way is the fastest, but now it's time for you to go try that out. So there's those nested sequences that you're going to get. And then we also have a wrap choice strategy document, and it talks about some of the things that we talked about here in terms of how I approach wrap choices in practice and in a trial, and talks a little bit about the, you know, what happens if you don't have the skill to execute a particular way, the fact that you need to compare 2 good executions to really know which way is faster. One of the things that I want to point out from that document that I think is subtle is that I want you, when you are looking at wrap choices and when you set them up in the field, Now everybody's psyched up about route choices. They're going to set them up, they're going to run them, they're going to time them. There's a step that comes first. I want you to analyze them and decide which way is faster before you run it, because that's the situation that you're in when you get a route choice in a trial. It's basically your hypothesis, and then you're going to go test your hypothesis. We're going to use the scientific method right here in dog agility. So you're going to come up with your hypothesis, you're going to test your hypothesis, and then you're going to come to a conclusion by looking at the video and using timing. And what that will do is, it's really easy if you always run it both ways to see which one's faster in that instance, but to not actually progress your skill of knowing that up front before you run it, right? So you want to force yourself to commit to which way you think is faster. As you get better, you can even commit to how big of a difference you think it's going to be. Then you're going to test that hypothesis. Then you're going to look at it in timing, within the video. So before we wrap up, the one thing that we did want to mention is that the 2018 AKC Nationals prep course is currently open for registration, and this is actually exactly the kind of analysis that we do in that course. And in fact, I wanted to do this live because in this prep course, we take every round of last year's Nationals event, we take a sequence from it, an interesting sequence, and we have you run it multiple different ways, different handling, or in the case of choices, different choices. And that lets you really discover, to try out some different handling, to see what feels best, also to force yourself to try some handling that maybe isn't your first choice, and you might actually be surprised that it turns out to be smoother, or that over the course of the 5-week course that you actually improve, let's say your rear crosses, because you go out and you force yourself to practice them. Because one thing we know about course design is judges are always going to put up things that are going to favor one handling versus another, and you never know what that's going to be. So if you are a front cross dominant handler and you cannot rear cross, there is going to be a judge who's going to set something up where the front cross opens up a huge trap and the rear cross is safer, and vice versa. So we want to build those skills across the board, and the way that we do that for Nationals is by looking at last year's event. And when I was looking at what we were going to do for this year's prep course, when I got to the challenge round also had an extremely tricky technical section in the middle. And that's what we're going to do with our participants for that particular round. But there was this choice that was so interesting. So I said, okay, let's take this choice, let's take our nested sequences and let's do this as a live, and then we'll save the tricky challenge for the actual course. But so that course, it covers all 5 rounds of last year's event. We start by analyzing the course map first. So the actual map, drawing on it, with our arrows and things like that, talking about the different lines, the different traps, the different subtleties of those courses. Then we have the exercises, and these are small space exercises like this. The biggest one is 50 by 60 feet, and you're going to try that in multiple different ways. And we have video and analysis, showing the slow-mo, showing the execution points, so that you can then go and execute in your yard. And then we have nested sequences, kind of like what we've sent you here in this PDF, if you download that. Nested challenge sequence that are a little bit harder, are going to push you a little bit more in getting prepared for that event. But this is not just about the national event. We have people take this every year that use it just to improve their skills, to get some small space exercises. We had people take the invitational prep course that had never trialed. He actually used it as trial prep, getting out for the first time with his 13-month-old dog, and liked having the small space. This particular handler was also getting feedback from us, so that is an option. You can sign up either just for the course or for the course with feedback, and if you're doing with feedback, you send us your video and we mark it all up and we send it back, and we tell you, where you might be able to clean things up and things like that. So if you're interested in that class, we're sending out emails. You should find it on our Facebook page. You can also go to baddogagility.com/prep, P-R-E-P, and that will take you to the page that has all the details on it. We're also super excited to have Sarah Baker and Jennifer Crank this year providing some of the demos. So we have two-time national agility champion Sarah Baker. We have Jennifer Crank, who's been in the finals 20 times, and they're also contributing videos to this course for us. So, do we have any other questions? Did you check? Did you look?
No, I think so. I think that was it.
So I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it does give you a framework for looking at these choices. I hope you do download that PDF and set this up for yourself. Every dog is different, so you do want to try it with your dog and start thinking about this for every choice that you encounter.
Hey, so I'll just say one more thing. It is going to be awesome. Sarah Baker, Jennifer Crank, myself, we're doing this. You know, we've been doing pretty good in nationals the last couple years. You know, the three of us get 3 different handling styles, approaches. You know, we're kind of eclectic here. Bad Dog Agility. We want to, you know, we recognize there's a lot of different dogs, handlers, breeds out there. But to give everyone an opportunity to see how we approach the event, which is going to be the same. Just like how, you know, world team members get ready for the world championship, just like how you novice people are getting ready for your first novice shows. You go back and you find examples of novice courses. People who are going to the world championship, they try and find world championship courses. They run the previous year's courses, and that's what we're doing here. We look back on the courses, and now that what is this, our 4th or 5th year? Right, we've been looking at the nationals every single year very, very closely. So I can tell you all the design trends. I can tell you what's been happening, what they're doing now, what they weren't doing 4 or 5 years ago. You see in the comments here, Gail Storm says, you know, it's funny for her to watch this kind of knowing what might be coming. Now, you know, I don't know what that means, but I'm just telling you people that, you know, this is the kind of preparation that top level competitors do. You're going to the nationals for the first time. You have a friend who's going for the first time. You want to do really well. You're traveling a long way. You're going all the way out there. You're making that investment. You know, invest in this course. We're going to help you out. And, you know, we kind of like to have our free content a little bit separate from like our advertising, you know, and the podcast. We try not to do too much bleeding over and stuff like that. But, you know, like the first couple years, I think for the prep course, we never wanted to say like, you should do this because you will do better. We always feel uncomfortable, like do this and we guarantee these results. You know, join our diet program and you will lose 30 pounds in 30 days. You know, we don't want to say stuff like that. You know, agility is very much about a lot of different things, including the effort that you put in into your own preparation and training, a little bit of luck factor there at the actual events. But every year now, especially the last, I think 2 years, we've had people come up to us at nationals and they say, you know, I did this and I wouldn't have done this, or I didn't know about that if I hadn't have seen this or that thing that you did, and it gave them some kind of advantage. You know, people winning rounds, people winning nationals, people getting into the challenge round, people showing up for their first nationals and making the final. Like, that's happening, and those handlers felt like it had a big impact. So now I feel obligated to point that out, because now I feel like we are giving some people an advantage by sharing what we do in our training, and so that someone going to this event and now suddenly they get to see how Sarah Baker does it, 2-time champ. Jennifer Crank, she's a champ. Me and Gitchy been in the final the last 2 years, putting up big times. Like, I mean, it's an advantage that those people are going to have that other handlers are not going to have, and doesn't make sense to not invest when you're already putting in. I know I'm spending thousands to get all the way up to Reno, right? So a lot of other people are too, with the time off work, the travel, the hotel, the entries, the babysitting for your other dogs back home that you're not taking to nationals. So that's just something I wanted to put out this year. We didn't really put out in previous years.
I think one of the other interesting things that I've seen recently, so the first year that we did this, this is actually our 5th year doing the NAC prep. And so the first year we had this idea. The idea was, well, how are you going to prepare for nationals? Well, all things being equal, why don't we look at the year before's nationals? Why don't we look at those courses? Why don't we look at those challenges? And so that's you know, it's kind of the birth of this course. Well, now that we've done it 5 years, we have seen so on the one hand, you're going to get better at your skills. You're going to get better at your front crosses and your rear crosses, and you're going to get better at your execution and seeing things on course. You're going to get better at all those things. But in addition, we are seeing what we theorized might happen, which is repeats of very, very similar sequences. So everybody here should go look at the AKC website at the 2014 AKC Nationals, I think. I'll put a comment if I'm wrong about that. And the opening of Standard. It had a wrap choice, for jump, wrap choice, back to the same jump to the dog walk. Does that sound familiar? That's what we just did. The angles were different, yes, but it was a jump, jump, wrap, jump, dog walk, just like this is. And in that case, you also had the majority of the field taking the inside turn left loop. And at least when we ran it at home and timed it, we found it to be faster going to the right. So given that exercise that we did, 4 years ago, the first time I saw this in the challenger round, I immediately felt like going to the right. Before I did any analysis, I didn't get to go down on the field and walk it. I immediately felt like going to the right was faster. And it wasn't until later that I kind of realized, yes, I've done a course very, very similar to this. And so that's kind of, I guess, icing on the cake. Every once in a while, we have had people come back and say, oh my gosh, the exercise that you picked for this was almost exactly like this section of this round of the Invitational.
And to be clear, we do not have access to the course maps in advance, okay? There is no kind of funny business going on here, but there's only so many things you can do in agility given the constraints of the rules. And the first thing any judge is going to do when they find they've got the National Agility Championship judging assignment is go back at old courses to kind of gauge the level of difficulty and the possibilities of what they can do, okay? So just something to keep in mind.
All right, so I see a lot of people saying choice. I don't see very many questions. So I think that we are good. If you do have any questions, please do put them in. We come behind, we look at your questions, we answer them.
Give us a couple of days.
Yeah, and we hope to see many of you in the course. And that's it for this Dog Agility Show.
Yeah, if we don't do another live before Nationals, you see us at Nationals, stop by, come say hi.
Oh yes, absolutely. If you see us at Nationals, yeah, and as long as we are not like heads down doing something, please come say hi. We love it.
Yeah.
All right, happy training.
Bye.